Imagine biting into a delicious meal, only to be told it might drive you mad. Sounds like the plot of a horror movie, right? But believe it or not, there was a time when certain foods were thought to send people over the edge. From everyday snacks to beloved dishes, these foods were once accused of causing insanity. Stick around, because we're about to dive into the wild and wacky world of foods that were once believed to drive people insane. You'll never look at your plate the same way again. Origins of the belief. Historical periods when food was directly linked to madness and mental collapse. Throughout history, people have often looked to their diets to explain unusual behavior or mental health issues. The idea that certain foods could drive a person insane has roots in various cultures and time periods. In ancient Greece, for instance, Hippocrates, often regarded as the father of medicine, suggested that an imbalance of bodily fluids, or humors, could lead to madness. He believed that certain foods could disrupt this balance, potentially causing mental instability. This idea persisted for centuries, influencing medical thought and cultural beliefs about the connection between food and mental health. In the Middle Ages, the concept of food-induced madness took on a more supernatural tone. Many believed that certain foods could be tainted by evil spirits or curses, leading to insanity. For example, some thought that eating meat from animals that had died of natural causes could cause mental illness. This belief was partly due to the lack of understanding about food spoilage and the role of bacteria. The fear of contaminated food was so great that it often led to strict dietary rules and superstitions. During the 19th century, the idea that food could cause madness gained more scientific traction. Physicians and scientists began to explore the chemical composition of foods and their effects on the body. Some researchers suggested that certain substances in food, such as alkaloids, could disrupt brain function and lead to mental illness. This period saw a rise in the study of nutrition and its impact on mental health, laying the groundwork for modern understanding. However, many of these early theories were based on limited knowledge and often led to misconceptions. For example, some believed that eating too much sugar could cause insanity, an idea that has since been debunked. Despite these inaccuracies, the 19th century marked a significant shift towards a more scientific approach to understanding the link between food and mental health. Specific foods under suspicion: bread, spices, fermented products, and their association with strange behavior. Throughout history, certain foods have been unfairly blamed for causing madness. Bread, spices, and fermented products have all been under suspicion at one point or another. The connection between these foods and strange behavior often stemmed from a lack of understanding about mental health and food science. People looked for explanations, and sometimes their meals became the scapegoat. Bread, a staple in many diets, has been accused of driving people insane. This belief likely arose from the consumption of moldy or poorly stored bread. Some molds produce compounds that can affect the nervous system. For instance, ergot, a fungus that grows on rye, contains chemicals similar to LSD. Ingesting ergot-contaminated bread could lead to hallucinations and erratic behavior. However, not all moldy bread is dangerous. Many molds are harmless, and some are even used in food production, like in certain cheeses. Spices, with their intense flavors and sometimes hallucinogenic properties, have also been linked to madness. Nutmeg, for example, contains myristicin, a compound that can cause delirium in large doses. Some historical accounts suggest that sailors would chew nutmeg to induce hallucinations during long voyages. Similarly, excessive consumption of other spices like cinnamon or cloves could lead to overstimulation and unusual behavior. Yet, in moderate amounts, these spices are safe and even beneficial. The key lies in understanding the right dosage and context. Fermented products, such as alcohol and certain cheeses, have been associated with strange behavior due to their mind-altering effects. Alcohol, in particular, is known to lower inhibitions and impair judgment. In excess, it can lead to aggressive or irrational behavior. Similarly, some fermented cheeses contain high levels of tyramine, a compound that can cause headaches and even hallucinations in sensitive individuals. However, when consumed in moderation, these foods are generally safe. The issue arises when people consume them in excessive amounts or have underlying sensitivities. In the days of old, people believed that the body was governed by 4 humors: blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile. These humors were thought to be the driving forces behind a person's health and temperament. An imbalance in these humors was seen as the root cause of various ailments, including mental illnesses. For instance, an excess of black bile was believed to cause melancholia, a condition characterized by sadness and despair. This theory, known as the humorism theory, was prevalent in ancient Greece and Rome and continued to influence medical thought well into the Middle Ages. It wasn't until the 19th century that this theory began to fall out of favor, as more scientific approaches to medicine emerged. Another prevalent theory was that of poisoned blood, or what was known as bad blood. This concept suggested that certain foods could corrupt the blood, leading to a range of physical and mental health issues. For example, some believed that eating too much meat could cause the blood to become thick and sluggish, leading to conditions like insanity. This idea was often used to explain the behavior of those who were considered mad. It wasn't uncommon for people to be advised to bleed themselves or undergo other purifying rituals to cleanse their blood and restore their mental health. These practices, while now seen as archaic, were once considered standard medical procedures. Corrupted spirits were also thought to play a role in driving people insane. This belief was rooted in the idea that the body was inhabited by various spirits or energies that could become corrupted or imbalanced. Certain foods were believed to have the power to disrupt these spirits, leading to mental illness. For example, some thought that consuming too much alcohol could corrupt the spirits, leading to conditions like delirium and hallucinations. Others believed that eating foods that were considered cold or damp could also disrupt the spirits, leading to conditions like depression and anxiety. These beliefs were often intertwined with religious and spiritual practices, and treatments often involved prayers, rituals, and the use of herbs and other natural remedies. These theories, while now considered outdated, provide a fascinating glimpse into the medical beliefs of the past. They reflect a time when the boundaries between medicine, religion, and spirituality were often blurred. While these theories have been largely discredited, they continue to influence our understanding of the history of medicine and the evolution of medical thought. Today, we know that mental illness is caused by a complex interplay of genetic, biological, and environmental factors, and that diet plays a role in overall health, but not in the way that was once believed. During the 19th century, a peculiar phenomenon swept through parts of Europe and North America. Towns and communities would suddenly experience outbreaks of what appeared to be mass insanity. People would exhibit strange behaviors, often in groups, leading to widespread panic and confusion. These episodes were sometimes linked to food, particularly rye bread, which was a dietary staple at the time. The culprit behind these outbreaks was often ergot, a fungus that grows on rye and other grains. Ergot contains alkaloids that can cause hallucinations, convulsions, and other symptoms mimicking insanity. When consumed in contaminated bread, these toxins could affect entire communities. The symptoms varied but often included delirium, paranoia, and even gangrene in severe cases. The collective nature of these outbreaks was particularly unsettling, as entire towns would seem to descend into madness simultaneously. One of the most well-documented examples occurred in the French province of Alsace. A wave of ergot poisoning led to a surge in hospitalizations and reports of bizarre behavior. People would run through the streets screaming, convinced they were being pursued by demons. The local authorities were baffled, as the symptoms seemed to spread like a contagion. It wasn't until the connection to ergot-contaminated rye was made that the cause was identified. This understanding led to better practices in grain storage and milling, reducing the frequency of such outbreaks. In North America, similar incidents were reported, particularly in regions where rye was a primary crop. The symptoms were often attributed to supernatural causes or mass hysteria. However, the common thread in these outbreaks was the consumption of ergot-infected grain. The collective nature of the symptoms added to the mystery, as entire families or communities would exhibit similar behaviors. This phenomenon highlighted the importance of understanding the role of food in mental health and the need for better agricultural practices to prevent such incidents. Throughout history, various cultures have ascribed supernatural properties to food, often intertwining these beliefs with religious interpretations. In many instances, certain foods were viewed as tools of punishment or demonic influence, capable of driving people to madness or spiritual ruin. These beliefs were deeply rooted in the religious and cultural contexts of the time, shaping societal attitudes towards specific foods and their consumption. In medieval Europe, for example, some religious texts and folklore warned against the consumption of certain foods, associating them with demonic influence. The walnut, often referred to as the devil's eye, was one such food. Its resemblance to a human eye and its tendency to stain the fingers when shelled led to superstitions that it was a tool of the devil. Some believed that eating walnuts could invite demonic possession or madness. Similarly, the blackberry was thought to be a favorite of witches and the devil himself. According to legend, when Lucifer was cast out of heaven, he fell into a blackberry bush, cursing the fruit and making it unfit for consumption after the month of August. Eating blackberries after this time was believed to invite illness or spiritual harm. In other cultures, certain foods were seen as instruments of divine punishment. In some Christian traditions, the consumption of pork was associated with gluttony and sin. This belief was reinforced by religious texts that depicted pigs as unclean animals. The idea that eating pork could lead to moral corruption and, ultimately, madness was a common theme in religious teachings. Similarly, in some African traditions, certain foods were believed to be cursed or enchanted, capable of driving those who consumed them to madness or death. These beliefs were often tied to the idea that food could be used as a tool for witchcraft or sorcery. These religious interpretations of food as a tool of punishment or demonic influence highlight the complex relationship between diet, culture, and spirituality. They reflect the ways in which societies have sought to understand and control the world around them through the lens of their beliefs. While these interpretations may seem far-fetched or superstitious by modern standards, they offer valuable insights into the cultural and religious contexts in which they arose. Understanding these beliefs can help us appreciate the diversity of human experiences and the ways in which food has played a central role in shaping our collective consciousness. In the 19th century, the potato became a symbol of both sustenance and fear. When European settlers introduced this starchy tuber to North America, it was initially met with enthusiasm. However, as potatoes became a dietary staple, so did the rumors about their potential to cause madness. The fear was so intense that some communities imposed strict bans on potato cultivation. In certain regions, entire potato crops were destroyed to prevent what was believed to be the spread of insanity. The hysteria was so widespread that it led to the execution of farmers who refused to comply with these bans. This extreme reaction was driven by a combination of ignorance and social panic, illustrating how deeply ingrained the fear of certain foods could be. The fear of potatoes wasn't an isolated incident. Throughout history, various foods have been accused of driving people insane, leading to social restrictions and even violent actions. For example, in some parts of Europe, the consumption of certain types of meat was banned due to the belief that it could cause mental instability. These bans were often enforced by local authorities, who would impose heavy fines or even imprisonment on those who violated the rules. In some cases, the fear was so great that entire communities would band together to destroy crops or livestock that were believed to be harmful. This collective action was driven by a desire to protect the community from what was perceived as a threat to their mental health. The fear of certain foods often led to the creation of social norms and taboos. For example, in some cultures, the consumption of pork was strictly forbidden due to the belief that it could cause madness. These taboos were often enforced through social pressure, with those who violated them facing ostracism or other forms of punishment. In some cases, the fear was so great that entire communities would refuse to trade with or associate with those who consumed the forbidden food. This social isolation was a powerful tool for enforcing these taboos, as it created a strong incentive for individuals to comply with the community's beliefs. The fear of certain foods also led to the creation of legal restrictions. For example, in some parts of the world, the consumption of certain types of mushrooms was banned due to the belief that they could cause madness. These bans were often enforced through the legal system, with those who violated them facing fines or imprisonment. In some cases, the fear was so great that entire communities would band together to destroy crops or livestock that were believed to be harmful. This collective action was driven by a desire to protect the community from what was perceived as a threat to their mental health. The fear of certain foods also led to the creation of social norms and taboos. For example, in some cultures, the consumption of pork was strictly forbidden due to the belief that it could cause madness. These taboos were often enforced through social pressure, with those who violated them facing ostracism or other forms of punishment. In some cases, the fear was so great that entire communities would refuse to trade with or associate with those who consumed the forbidden food. This social isolation was a powerful tool for enforcing these taboos, as it created a strong incentive for individuals to comply with the community's beliefs. In the past, certain foods were blamed for causing madness, and now we have better explanations for these phenomena. Many of these foods were later found to contain toxins or chemicals that can affect the brain. For instance, ergot, a fungus that grows on rye and other grains, produces compounds that can cause hallucinations and other symptoms similar to madness. This fungus was a significant problem in the past, especially in regions where rye was a staple food. The chemicals produced by ergot, known as alkaloids, can disrupt the nervous system and lead to symptoms such as confusion, convulsions, and even gangrene in severe cases. Today, we understand that these symptoms are not a sign of madness but rather the result of poisoning by these natural compounds. Another example is the consumption of certain types of fish that can accumulate toxins in their bodies. For instance, some species of fish can contain high levels of mercury, which can be harmful to the nervous system. Mercury poisoning can lead to symptoms such as tremors, memory loss, and cognitive decline. In the past, people who consumed these fish regularly might have exhibited symptoms that were mistaken for madness. Today, we know that these symptoms are the result of mercury toxicity and can be prevented by avoiding contaminated fish or by properly cooking and preparing them. Additionally, some foods can cause psychological effects due to their chemical composition. For example, certain cheeses contain high levels of tyramine, a compound that can cause headaches, anxiety, and even hallucinations in some people. This is because tyramine can trigger the release of norepinephrine, a neurotransmitter that can affect mood and behavior. In the past, people might have attributed these symptoms to madness or possession, but today we understand that they are the result of a chemical reaction in the brain. Similarly, some people experience symptoms of anxiety or depression after consuming foods that contain high levels of caffeine or other stimulants. These symptoms can be mistaken for madness, but they are actually the result of the body's natural response to these chemicals. In the past, certain foods were thought to cause madness, and this belief was often reinforced by visible symptoms that seemed to support the superstition. People would notice changes in behavior, physical appearance, or even the smell of someone's breath after they ate specific foods. These changes were taken as proof that the food was causing insanity. For example, some believed that eating moldy bread could lead to erratic behavior. The mold itself was visible, and the bread often had a strange smell. When someone acted strangely after eating it, people connected the dots and blamed the bread. Another food that was often linked to madness was spoiled meat. It could cause physical symptoms like nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. These symptoms were sometimes accompanied by confusion or disorientation. Since people didn't understand the science behind food poisoning, they attributed these symptoms to insanity. The visible signs of illness, like pale skin or a fever, only reinforced their beliefs. Even the smell of rotting meat was enough to make people associate it with something sinister. Some foods were also thought to cause madness because they affected the mind in ways that were visible to others. For instance, alcohol was often blamed for causing insanity. When someone drank too much, their behavior could become erratic, their speech slurred, and their coordination poor. These visible symptoms were taken as proof that alcohol was driving them mad. Similarly, some believed that eating too much sugar could lead to madness. They noticed that people who ate a lot of sweets often became hyperactive or irritable. These changes in behavior were seen as signs of insanity. The fear persisted because people didn't have a scientific understanding of how food affects the body and mind. They relied on their observations and superstitions to make sense of the world. When they saw changes in behavior or physical appearance after someone ate a certain food, they blamed the food. This cycle of observation and blame kept the fear alive for generations. It wasn't until modern science began to explain the effects of food on the body and mind that these superstitions started to fade. Even today, some of these beliefs linger in certain cultures, a reminder of how powerful visible symptoms can be in shaping our beliefs. And there you have it, folks. From lobsters to potatoes, our ancestors had some pretty wild ideas about the foods that could send us over the edge. While we now know that these foods won't drive us insane, it's fascinating to look back and see how our understanding of nutrition and mental health has evolved. It just goes to show that food is a powerful thing. It can nourish us, comfort us, and even shape our history. So next time you're enjoying a meal, take a moment to appreciate the journey it's been on, from ancient superstitions to modern science. And hey, if you ever find yourself craving lobster, don't worry, you're not in danger of losing your mind. Just maybe your appetite. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deliciously intriguing content. Until next time, keep exploring and keep eating.